and gentlemen, welcome back to AussieVerse, where we are up to episode 3 of Thru the MCU, where today, myself, OmniBeau, Ryan, and Mark Grodd Watson will be discussing the marvelous venture that was Iron Man 2. How are you guys going today?
Pretty good. I'd say that marvelous is not the way to describe Iron Man 2, but yeah, apart from that, pretty good.
Yeah, I'm going good. I'm definitely interesting to rewatch this. So yeah, let's kick into it.
If you are enjoying our content, please consider, with all of the feelings in your heart, to press the like, thumbs up button and to share the video, because once we get to 400 subscribers, which we are very close to, we will be giving away a $100 Amazon gift card for you to be able to buy whatever the hell you want. You can check us out on Instagram at AussieVerse_Comx_collectors for everything AussieVerse. And all of our designs, graphic designs, thumbnails, and editing is all done by A51 Designs. Okay, let's get down to it. Iron Man 2, our first bit of, topic of conversation would be the casting of this movie. What do you guys think? What are your feelings of the casting of Iron Man 2?
Well, Iron Man 2, it's very lucky in that it gets to carry over a lot of the cast from the first movie. Like Robert Downey Jr., who again smacks it out of the park as Tony Stark / Iron Man. He delivers a very good performance in this movie, even if the movie is not the greatest. You enjoy watching it because you enjoy watching Tony Stark, not necessarily what Tony Stark may or may not be doing throughout the movie.
Yep, 100% agree. One of the shining diamonds of this movie is the fact that Simon Rockwell is cast as Justin Hammer. And Simon Rockwell is, without a doubt, one of my favorite actors in Hollywood at the moment. I love everything Simon Rockwell does. He is just absolutely brilliant. I loved him ever since I saw him in The Green Mile. And yeah, like, I am just dying for Justin Hammer to come back into the MCU. He was in the one-shot All Hail to the King, which is the I was about to say Mandalorian, but I meant the Mandarin one-shot that was on, I believe, one of the Thor DVDs. But Justin Hammer is still yet to come back into the MCU. But all hail Sam Rockwell.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah, you did say just it was Sam Rockwell. That was going to be my one. What I realised with Sam Rockwell is one thing he leaves a lasting impression of when he dances. Like he did that dance at the very last. You can't have a movie without Sam Rockwell dancing. He's so good. So yeah, I really that southern accent. Like he does seem like he always seems like a bit of a jerk, but you kind of like him. He had this warmness to him, but also jerkness to him, and he like he's a unique character. Like he's a unique person. Like the way he acts, and every single time he acts as a villain because he's really good at it. But in real life, he's like the nicest dude ever. So go figure. And obviously we got this our first introduction to Scarlett Johansson, isn't it?
Yep. Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow.
Yep, it was. Yep.
I don't think we realised how big of an impact she would have in the Marvel Universe at this stage.
Well, Scarlett Johansson almost wasn't the Black Widow as well. It was almost Emily Blunt. The only reason that she had to drop out was due to scheduling.
Yep. Plus, I heard Emily Blunt wasn't too keen on being in a superhero franchise.
Well, it would, at the time, big commitment, because you're talking about a 6-picture deal at that time, which that's a lot to agree to, especially in the context of your life. You're just going, okay, here's the next 6 to 8 years of my life just signed away.
Yeah. And that's fair enough, you know. It's very hard for somebody that's very addicted to comics and very addicted to the characters that are portrayed in comics to not have a negative to not have a negative comment on actors' choices on what they do. But at the end of the day, like Ryan said, it is a hell of a commitment, and you can't blame some people for not wanting to commit the next 10 years of their life.
Yeah, it'd still be pretty well unknown at that time, though, wouldn't it? Also, too, like, how about, I guess we'll dive into Mickey Rourke. Now, I like him as Whiplash. I thought he was really cool. Like that scene, the actual race at the Grand Prix race, that was a cool scene. Even for its time, we're talking about a 13-year-old movie now.
Exactly.
That was
13 years since Iron Man 2. You can believe that, ladies and gentlemen. 13 years.
Yeah. So what do you guys think of, Mickey Rourke as Whiplash?
I agree with you. I'm a big fan of Mickey Rourke. I believe he is a very good actor. However, there are some actors that obviously we don't know what goes on in Hollywood. It's very stupid, I believe, to have an opinion on what actors go through when we don't know the full story. We only know what reporters report. And as far as the general public knows, Mickey Rourke was not happy and he decided to not do anything further. And, you know, we just don't understand. We don't realize is there a contractual dispute? Did he get promised more money? Did he get promised more roles? Did he get promised more screen time? Who knows? End of the day, Mickey Rourke killed it as Whiplash. And it's a shame that we will never see Whiplash again in the MCU.
Me personally, I fall on the side of Mickey Rourke as Whiplash / Ivan Vanko. He has a lot of good moments throughout the movie, and he's a very charismatic character, but I just didn't really care for him as a villain.
Yeah.
I thought towards the very end it sort of ran its course. So I think a one and done villain's pretty good. But yeah, I always liked Mickey Rourke. I'm the same as you, Bob. I've always been a Mickey Rourke fan. Like Sin City Merv is like one of my favorite characters in movies. Like he's really cool in that. And geez, I remember back in Double Team when he was with he was a villain against Van Damme and Dennis Rodman.
Yeah.
so yeah, it's just it was cool to see him. But geez, I mean, like it is a 13-year-old movie, and he's still looking not great there either, is he?
Yep. And speaking of casting, we cannot not talk about the fact that Don Cheadle is recast as War Machine. How do you guys feel about Don Cheadle?
Don Cheadle actually does a better job as Rhodey than Terrence Howard does.
Abso-freaking-lutely, I agree with you, and I believe you. Yeah.
By a mile. I mean, like he feels like your friend. Like he does, and he even had a few like cheeky jokes at the end on the rooftop. Like he's just a professional. I'm not to say away from the other, but Cheadle's just it's Don Cheadle. Like he knows what he's doing. He brings a certain thing to the camera.
What I love about it is the fact that the first scene with Don Cheadle, which is in that courtroom with Robert Downey Jr. and Tony Stark, is he turns around to him and he says this absolute meta joke, which is as soon as Robert Downey Jr. sees him, he says, "It's me, deal with it, move on," which is him talking to the audience, and that is brilliant because it's acknowledging the fact that it's a different actor. It's somebody that looks very different to the original War Machine, but here we are,
Yeah.
The vibe I got off of like Terrence Howard in the first movie and his relationship with Robert Downey Jr., well, his Tony Stark in the first movie, I got more of the vibe of I'd say father-son relationship as opposed to two best friends just palling around.
Right. Yeah, I can see that. Like he was supposed to pull him into line. Rhodey, the Don Cheadle version, sort of believes in Tony's. I mean, like he's trying to pull him in check anyway, but only if he does something wrong. But yeah, it just felt like a bit more chemistry, didn't it?
Yeah, I've just always loved Don Cheadle, so I'm a little biased towards his acting. How did you guys feel for the very first time? We, the MCU audience, got to see Scarlet Witch. I was about to say Scarlet Witch, but I meant Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson. How did you guys feel about that casting?
You go first, Rob.
It was good casting.
Look, I like it now. I suppose I like it. Well, I mean, I can't imagine anybody else now, to be honest. But I'm sure they could have gone. There's plenty of other really strong female characters that could have filled the role. But yeah, Scarlett Johansson's good. She's got a bit of comedy to her, a bit of charisma. Very hard to fight the way she fights in a very long wig of hair there, as she does. It's hard not to notice. But
I was actually disappointed.
What's that?
I was actually disappointed that when I originally saw this for the very first time, being a Marvel purist, that she has this full-blown American accent. Like she should have a Russian accent, or at least some Russian attributes to the way that she talks. And maybe that's just me being a bit too tight ass with the character.
I thought the eventual, like, I like it at the end, but I thought the eventual grind of bringing her in was a bit. It doesn't age well, to be honest. There's a lot of sexual innuendo jokes and stuff like that, and you don't know if it's her or not, and she's a secretary, and it wasn't the greatest introduction, but at the end when she was finally able to show true colors, it was cool. But I just thought it was a bit of not a great start. Like I'm rewatching it, just going, these bits a bit, I don't know what the word is, but yeah, just sort of cringeworthy some bits.
I disagree. I feel like, especially with calling this wonderful storytelling, I meant to know. that there's wonderful storytelling in Iron Man 2 do not go in the same sentence. This is a movie where it is a bloody mess. It doesn't know what it wants to do. It's got too much going on. You have things being brought up and coming out of nowhere. You have this secret element that's being worked on by Tony Stark's father, which is just brought to Tony Stark out of nowhere, that just cures the disease that they just had to come up with, that wasn't a problem in the previous movie.
Well, there are certain elements of this film that I believe really sets it apart from every other superhero movie. And that is, well, first and foremost, the fact that the first movie ended with Tony Stark saying, "I am Iron Man." And this movie takes place straight after that scene in the press conference. No, not 6 months. You see the press conference, and it's Tony Stark saying, "I am Iron Man," and the fallout from that. And yeah, straight after that scene, it's 6 months later. But how many superhero movies have you seen where Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, whatever, has turned around and been like, the start of the movie is me outing myself to the public? That's
Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yeah, but that was years later, bro.
Yeah, but they, at the start of the movie, they deal with the fallout of the previous movie where the man was outed.
Yeah, but that yeah, but again, that was years later. At the time, this was a precedent because before Spider-Man No Way Home, no matter how many Superman and Batman films you had and other superhero films, apart from maybe the Fantastic Four, every superhero film had a secret identity, something that he was trying to hide and keep to himself. Where Iron Man was the first superhero that blatantly turned around and said, "I am Iron Man."
I don't really feel like Hugh Jackman as Wolverine was trying to hide his secret identity very much, or the Punisher.
Okay, you got me there. But my argument back to that is Wolverine doesn't give a fuck because he can kill whoever he wants. And Punisher, see answer one.
Well, I feel like the start and end of the movie were all pretty solid. Like, it does start off to a good way. I just feel it loses its momentum in between. Kind of similar to what Ryan said, but yeah, the stuff with his dad and stuff like this, and all of a sudden there's a magic cure, stuff like that. I get all that, but I really enjoyed the start to the movie and the progress where Whiplash first comes into it, and then at the very end, I love it. And also, obviously, with Hammer as well, I liked his progression. Like, there's a lot of good things to take out of this movie. Definitely, don't get me wrong, but yeah, I just feel as a whole, it seems to be a lot that could have been cut out or maybe cleaned up a little bit. But we're just at the start of the MCU, so I think all in all, not a bad sequel, but yeah. Are we going to do ratings later on? Do we honestly think it would be better than the first one?
No.
I don't know. Iron Man's never appealed that much to me. But I still reckon all three of these are great in their own ways, but they definitely have their problems.
One of the issues that I think Iron Man 2 faced is the fact that it really wanted originally to focus on Tony Stark's alcoholism. And it really wanted to take storylines or elements from his very famous Demon in a Bottle storyline. But somewhere throughout the creative process, they've decided to hint on that and not really delve too deep into it because there is so much more of a story to tell apart from his alcoholism. And I understand why they did it, but I think it's a real shame that they sort of glanced over such an addictive issue with the character, because alcoholism is very, very tragic. It's very, very harsh, and it's a very, very real scenario. And I'm almost susceptible to believe that the director or the writer or whoever has any sort of sway in the movie has turned around and said, we don't want to bring our audience down with the real life situation of alcoholism, and we can hint at it, but let's really make this more about the superhero aspect.
Well, you've got to keep in mind, Iron Man 2 is the first Marvel movie released after Disney bought Marvel. So
Yes.
when you get Disney involved in this, you get to the point of, well, Iron Man sells toys. Kids like Iron Man. Parents aren't going to let kids go and watch Iron Man if Iron Man is being a drunk asshole throughout the whole movie, and we're
Yeah.
having to delve into him being an alcoholic.
Yeah.
At the forefront. That
Yeah.
does not sell tickets to
Yeah.
little kids and to families. So as a result, that's why they had to ignore that.
Yeah. Yep, true. So one of the things that I loved is how Vanko's opening monologue is shot for shot the same as Iron Man 1. Them building their armor, dung, 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 in their respective caves. And you really saw Vanko mirroring Tony Stark's birth into Iron Man. I thought that was really well done by the director, Jon Favreau.
Yeah, I really like, I think we mentioned this last time, I miss the opening sort of credit scenes where it's a montage or something, and you get to focus a little bit on people that put work into the actual movie. You get to see names pop up, you get to see cast members coming into it, and in the background there's some montage going on and some like newspaper articles and some little plot points of what this movie's going to be like, or just reminders of how much he hates Tony Stark and stuff like that. I really like that opening scene, and with that sort of music as well. And yeah, I totally agree, Bo. It was a great start to the movie, and
Just to piggyback off what you're saying, Mark, it does a good job of getting a lot of exposition out of the way in that opening scene.
Yeah.
Where they do the montage, just like the Incredible Hulk did.
Yes.
Yeah. I feel you start noticing names a bit more too when you do that. You get a bit more credit back into people that put their hard work into the movie.
One of the things that I remember as a big Marvel fan that got me really excited was when you first see, I've gone totally blank on his name and his character's name, but when that certain individual, the Larry something show, that actor, he turns around and he says, "Hail Hydra," and he whispers it in his ear. That really got me excited as a Marvel fan, because it was the first time we got to see or hear about a Marvel evil organization that could be leading to something, and it could be making a bigger play at something. And oh man, that got me so freaking excited. Ryan, how did you feel when you first saw Larry David whisper into that guy's ear, "Hail Hydra"?
I don't remember that, to be honest.
No?
Not in this movie.
Well, it got played more into a Captain America movie where you realised Hydra had infiltrated all of S.H.I.E.L.D., but that was the first hint that is what's happening, has happened.
Also, too, you had the first hint of it was like a toy of the Captain America shield. Remember, Coulson finds it. He goes, "Oh, that's exactly what I need," and he puts it underneath, and it's just to prop up his his machine.
Iron Man 2, Incredible Hulk, and Thor, they all have a very interesting relationship. Wherein, so in the middle of Iron Man 2, Coulson says, "Oh, I have to go head off to New Mexico," and then he heads into the Thor movie. And then at the end of Iron Man 2, you can see on the monitor a scene from the Incredible Hulk playing out. So it just shows, yep, it's all connected. It's all happening around the same time.
Yeah.
Mm.
100%. Exactly right. And you know what? I am actually shocked that Marvel has been able to pull off something that has never been done in cinematic history ever, which is have such a connected universe and been able to pull off something that they dreamed about, we would imagine 10 years in the making, which has eventually ended up in Infinity War and Endgame, and them not be able to walk away with some sort of Hollywood award, because what they accomplished is just absolutely massive. And they pulled it off, man. And this is more of a conversation to be had when we do the Infinity War or the Endgame video. But I've got to mention it here. This was even though Iron Man had the end credit scene and Incredible Hulk had the end credit scene, Iron Man 2 was the first movie that really shoved it in the Marvel fans' face and said everything is connected. And that is such an accomplishment from Marvel Studios and Jon Favreau, the director. One of the things that I personally love about the Iron Man movies is how every Iron Man movie that comes out, he upgrades his armor. I don't know what Mac version he's up to in Iron Man 3, but let's say for argument's sake it's Mac 10. I think it went past that. This is armor that is only in 3 movies, and he's been able to get up to double digits in Iron Man armor. That is so good, man. That Iron Man suit in the suitcase, I thought that was absolutely brilliant. Brilliant. How did you guys feel about it?
It was a cool scene.
Yeah. It's a cool scene. I got to be honest, like visually wise, I like roadies at the end with all the guns on it. That's for me.
Being a Punisher fan, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, strap a minigun to it on. You've got me.
One of the things I really love how, unless you're a diehard Marvel fan, you don't really notice these things. But I really love the fact how Tony's in the first scene that he fought Whiplash at the Grand Prix or whatever that racing event was. Tony Stark was up to his Mach 5 armor. And during that fight scene where he first fights Whiplash, Tony Stark is really susceptible to Whiplash's, his electric whiplashes. You see him go, oh, and he's feeling the pain of the electricity. And then by the time the Avengers movie comes around, he's realized, I need a way to be able to not only counteract electricity, but work it in my favor. And when Thor in the Avengers movie strikes down on Iron Man, you can tell, because he's now up to his Mach 6, has been able to fix that flaw. And when Thor hits him with the lightning, it supercharges his armor into an asset. And Tony Stark shoots that power into Thor. But again, that is more for the Avengers movie conversation than Iron Man 2.
Yeah, I don't know if we had to be hardcore Marvel fans to get that, but that's a very cool yeah, progression. Obviously, he learns his mistakes because Tony Stark is very smart. He's a man that evolves, and he's a good. This is one of the most exciting journeys. Is Tony Stark's evolution. So this is a good thing to revisit, to even go back this far and watch these first Iron Mans and stuff like that. It is exciting, and he definitely does grow as a person in so many different ways. He probably grows the most out of every character. So
His
yeah.
kill count
Good
grows
point.
a lot as well.
yes, yeah, 100%. Pop-up pets, she grows. Yeah, this whole cast sort of grows together as an Iron Man cast crew. So yeah, good points.
One thing I don't understand is Tony Stark in that donut where he's eating the donuts and Nick Fury is him. Why is Iron Man in the donut not a pop vinyl or some sort of statue? Because that is so iconic. You would think they would have made something to be able to represent that scene. And maybe they have, and I just haven't seen it. But I haven't seen it. And I just think that would be a great thing to have on the shelf for somebody that collects Marvel scenes or statues.
I reckon if it came out like 3 years ago, it probably would. Yeah.
Did you guys notice the Hammer logo?
Yes.
Yes.
So did you guys notice that the Hammer logo is very representative? I don't know if that's the word I'm trying to say. Of Asgard, Thor's homeland. Like it has a building in the middle and then a couple of other buildings. And what's funny is that they're called Hammer. So it's almost like Hammer got their inspiration from Thor before they knew Thor actually existed.
Yeah.
And then, speaking of hammers, the interesting thing is that you see the hammer in the post-credits of the movie. You find out it's in Mexico.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How excited did you feel about that?
Very, 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 very excited.
It's a few varies.
I didn't actually know that it was in the movie until about 2015.
Yeah, because these days, like back then, it was at the very, very end of the credits. I had to wait ages.
I loved how in this movie they really established Marvel's ability to mix humor with serious issues. We had Iron Man, we had Incredible Hulk, but I truly don't believe it was until Iron Man 2 that Marvel distinguished themselves from other studios and said, we can have a serious topic or a serious storyline at the same time as adding humor. And one of those things that I'm mentioning that makes me realize this is, for example, Tony Stark's torpedo that is called the ex-wife. That scene was so funny. He turns around and he goes, I'm going to give you the ex-wife, or whatever he says. And it's just this little pop.
Yeah. It was War Machines, wasn't it?
Yeah, okay. And it's just, man, that's when you really realized Marvel have really got it in the bag with how to mix these genres around, which DC have tried to emulate ever since.
Yeah, I remember when War Machine shoots it and it just sort of bounce off Whiplash.
Yeah.
And Tony Stark looks at War Machine and goes, Hammer Tech? Yeah, he goes, yeah, we live and learn.
Yeah, exactly right. My question to you is, where the hell is Justin Hammer? So he's appeared in the Thor one-shot, All Hail the King, which I would love to know how much Sam Rockwell was paid for that. But there are two characters in the MCU that I've been dying to make a comeback in the MCU so that we can make the whole circle complete. And the first one is the leader from the Hulk, and the second one is Justin Hammer. Where the hell is Justin Hammer? Surely he is going to be coming back in an MCU film.
Thunderbolts?
Yeah?
He's rumored to be in Ironheart.
Okay. Because he's in jail, I guess.
He is way too charismatic to not bring back.
Yeah. It is Sam Rockwell, too. He'll do it.
Yeah.
Seems like a pretty good dude. Yeah. So what do you think as personal? Like, we'll start from the positive. What was the scene that stood out to you as the most?
Oh, gee.
Right?
When he was just workshopping in his workshop. It's just Tony Stark doing Tony Stark things.
Yep. Oh?
I don't know how to answer that question. Whenever I think of Iron Man 2, I can't help but think of Vanko demanding his bird. Every time I think about Iron Man 2, I always think of him turning around and being like, "Where is my bird?" So for some reason, I can't get past that scene because it really shows a level of love. I don't know, where a man that can be so filled with hate and so filled with revenge and so filled with taking down one person that will restore the Vanko name, still loving a bird and needing that bird in his life. To me, that separates the villain category. You have villains that want the world to burn, and then you have villains that just want their revenge plan to be taken to be fruitful, but not necessarily the world to burn. And Vanko showed me that he's one of those villains.
Yep. Oh, mine would be almost at the top, like I said, dancing. But if I had to go, like, I enjoy the Grand Prix race, and when he lights up his whiplashes, the rest of his top burns off. Well, that was a pretty cool scene. So for me, and he's got that slow motion sort of walk. He looked real badass. So Mickey Rourke did. So that would be my memorable moment of it. Non-memorable moments. What is a moment that just made you go, "Oh, I wish that didn't happen," at all, if there is one?
Oh man. What is a scene that I wish didn't happen? Wow. What a great question, Mark. Ryan, have you got one? No.
It'd be one in the middle, so it'd probably be a lot of the dad stuff.
Yeah. My one was kind of the party. I think the party could have been out of it. It did stick out to me that also, like, I was thinking the exact same thing, is when he goes to Pepper Potts' office and he's thing that's turning in front of him, and it really creeps me out. I was thinking the same thing. I forgot that scene was coming up. I was just like, could And then Tony Stark, it gets to him as well.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I loved about this film is there is so many ways to make a movie, and as a writer, to be able to be lazy and make a film very simplified. But instead of going down the simplified route, you go down a more complicated route. And one of those examples is the remake of the Planet of the Apes. You could have easily made that Mark Wahlberg film, apes versus humans, evil versus good. But instead of doing that, you ended up having an ape that was bad, a human that was bad, and them just screwing over both races at the same time. So it made it much more compelling to watch the movie than what you would assume. And one of the things that I loved about this film was when Nick Fury is talking about the Avengers, is it the Protocol? I think he calls it. He turns around to Tony and he says, "You're not Avengers material, but we welcome you as a consultant." And I really enjoyed that little bit because they could have just been lazy, the writers, and said, "We want the Avengers," but instead they made it out a little bit like, "We want the Avengers and we want your input, but we don't really want you, Tony, because you're an alcoholic, playboy, billionaire, philanthropist. What else do you have after that suit?" Which Captain America hadn't answered yet.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't have teamwork written all over him, does he, Tony Stark? The fact that he just wouldn't play ball with the government in the first place is just doesn't scream teamwork. So he's not the type of guy you pick first. It's the type of guy you pick if you have no other choice to start with.
Yeah. So before we go into Easter eggs, is there any other thoughts you guys have about this film?
No.
Okay. No? Well, I've written down a few Easter eggs because I watched this last night for the first time in at least, let's say, 5 years. And let's see what I got. In the intro, you see these newspaper clippings. Do you remember that?
Mm.
In the newspaper clippings at the start of an article, it reads, "Iron Man stabilizes East-West relations." And it's written, the article, by Rob Down.
Yep.
Which is obviously Robert Downey Jr., right?
Right. Okay.
Stan Lee. I fully believe at this time when the movie was made and before they realized how much of a positive feeling Stan Lee's cameos would have in the movie, the directors, the writers, the producers, I don't know who, but somebody had an idea that instead of Stan Lee being cameos of whatever he is later on, he would just be cameoing as other characters. Because in the first movie, Iron Man 1, he was what, Hugh Hefner?
Mm.
In Iron Man 2, he had a very, very quick cameo as Larry King.
Similar industry.
Yeah. I don't know if you noticed, but briefly in the elevator, did you see Seth Green?
No.
Yep. Well, Seth Green is there, so that's a cameo. One of the things that got retconned years later was the little kid in the Iron Man mask that stood in front of Tony. That was retconned as Peter Parker Spider-Man. And the kid that was actually shot in that film is the director Jon Favreau's kid, Max.
Okay.
On Tony's phone in the courtroom, one app in the scene is actually called the Illuminati, which doesn't really make sense because the timeline that Tony Stark was Iron Man, he wouldn't have had enough. It wouldn't have had enough superhero-ness in the world to make an Illuminati, but there was an app. If you zoom and pause, one of the apps says the Illuminati. In Monaco, one of the scenes was shot in Monaco. We see Elon Musk.
Yeah.
One of the photos that he's taken with him, with Tony Stark and Pepper Potts, is later shown in the Avengers film framed. So I thought that was really cool how they really tie that together. One thing that I've gone on and on and on about in these movies is the fact that Roxxon Corporation is somehow shown in TV shows like Cloak and Dagger and movies, but yet Roxxon still don't have a presence in the MCU. And in the race car scene, one of the cars that explodes is sponsored by Roxxon. So I don't know if Kevin Feige or whoever else has any other sort of pull has just said, just throw in a Roxxon Easter egg. But I'd like to believe that one day Roxxon are going to play a huge part in the MCU.
Right. Sure.
I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but when showing Vanko's arrest in the newspapers, that was actually a real life photo of I've gone blank of his name, the actor being arrested when he was young. Mickey Rourke. That photo was actually a photo of Mickey Rourke being arrested.
That doesn't surprise me because I know he has been arrested a few times.
Yeah. And that's all the Easter eggs that I have.
Yeah, sweet. Anything else we want to add before we rate it?
Let's see. Hang on. Nope. That's all I have.
That's all, yep. Ryan, are you going to give this a rating or are you going to stay out of the ratings? Or
I won't give it a rating, as in like a 1 to 10, but I will.
No,
so
you must
I
give it a
will
rating,
rank it though, based on what we've currently got for the MCU.
You got to give it a rating, Ryan.
This is the bottom of the 3 movies that are out so far. This is the bottom.
right. Okay.
So you liked Iron Man 3 more than 2?
No, you just
Yeah.
I think
But I'm only talking about Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2.
Yeah.
This is the bottom one.
Being a Marvel purist and having a different mindset when these movies first came out to now, when I like to think I'm a little more mature and a little more understandable, where these movies aren't made for comic book fans, but they're made for the general populace. There are movies that I walked out of that I was really angry at, and Iron Man 2 and 3, I remember being very unhappy with when I walked out of the cinema. So back then, my rating might have been pretty low. However, now that it's been 10 years plus, and we know so much as we do now, it gives you a new perspective on the movies. And I would have to say that now in 2022, Iron Man 2, I would give a rating of 6.
6?
Yeah.
Okay. So you gave Iron Man 1 8.5 and Hulk 7. So Iron Man 2 6.
Yeah.
I honestly thought you were going to go higher than that because I'm going to give it about a 6 too. So yeah, Hulk 7 and Iron Man 7.5. So yeah, I'm going to give 6 because there's bits of it that I really like. It's just the in between. It just it kind of lost me for a little bit of the movie. I reckon it lost its momentum and picked itself back up. And I was like, oh, yes, this movie is fun and good. But I feel like that is a lot of MCU movies, especially to start with. And then they sort of find their groove of making it interesting all the way through. But, we got Thor next, don't we?
Yep, I believe so. But before we continue, let's have a word from our sponsor.
This show is sponsored by the Comx shop. Check out comx.cx for all things Comx and find out what Comx is all about. Then head over to comx.shop to pick up a variety of Australian comics from multiple creators and publishers, all for one flat postage rate. We hope you enjoy the show.
Do you guys who are watching this YouTube video ever think to yourself, how can I be more supportive to Australia, to Australian comic book needs? Well, we have the answer for you. Go to Comx, because not only do they support, produce, and acknowledge and promote Australian comics, they do all of that for Australian comic book artists, writers, and creators. And as Mark's hand can attest, one flat postage rate. You want one? You want 100 comics? It is one flat postage rate. Go to Comx, because that is where you can be AussieVerse satisfied. All right. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, have you got anything to add to this ride?
No, it's just a shit movie.
Yeah.
What about yourself, Mark?
Yeah, it was a bit of a grind at times, but I've got a feeling next week might be just as next movie might be just as bad. But better, you reckon? All right, well, it's been a while since I've watched it, so we'll see. About you, Bo, what are you going to add?
I think, what is it, Thor?
Yeah.
I think Thor is a much better movie than Iron Man 2, because the one scene where Thor smashes his glass down and says, "Another!"
Save it for the next video. Save it for Thor.
That is something I've always wanted to do in real life. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, we all have thought about it.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today. This is AussieVerse, and we will be back with more Through the MCU. Live chats on Monday. Sharif's Custom Corner and Ryan promises, swears, and tribute has written his contract in blood and says he will bring more videos to you in I think that he has, especially in the Mangaverse. This is AussieVerse. Thank you very much for joining us. We will see you soon. And as usual, what is AussieVerse, Mark?
AussieVerse for life.
Ryan, what is AussieVerse?
Bound in blood for
No.
forever.
Oh, life. You failed.